Let's talk about those paths to victory a little bit because the number that is going to be on everyone's mind on Tuesday night and beyond is 270. Who has the easier road to 270 right now as you look as the math is shaking out? Vice President Kamala Harris or former President Donald Trump?
Well, it's hard to tell because the battleground state polling is also razor thin as well, a couple of percentage point differences, whether for Trump or for Harris. And as you remember, in our last conversation together, I noted that Trump closed the difference nationally and seems to have engineered momentum for his campaign heading into Tuesday. So, and we're seeing that pan out, but it's not necessarily translating into votes where he needs the votes. And in some of the states that he was leading much more convincingly the last time around, Harris, like North Carolina, for example, Harris, they're either tied or she has a slight advantage in most of the polls that we are seeing. So again, pay close attention to the battleground state polls. We'll be releasing our own battleground state polling together with Forbes tomorrow morning for a final view of the way that voters in each of those states hash out. And that's ultimately what's going to decide the election. The other thing that I would note that's important to keep in mind too is whether or not readers believe the gender gaps that we are seeing in terms of support for Trump and for Harris. Trump has a 10-point support gap or win rate on men, 53% for Trump, 43% for Harris. And Harris has the opposite for women, 53% of women supporting her and 43% supporting Trump. Trump has always done better than expected with women in the final tally of both the 2016 election and the 2020 election. And also, Democratic support amongst women has gone down the last few election cycles, up to the point where in the 2018 midterms, Democrats had about an 18-point advantage with women, and that has steadily fallen down to the last midterm, where that advantage was in the single digits, in the mid-single digits. And so the big question is this gender gap that we're seeing in the polling, is it going to hold? If it holds, then it gives a slight advantage to Harris because we know that women voters actually show up and vote at much higher rates than men voters. Excuse me. If it doesn't hold, then that's one of the telltale signs that Trump is doing much better, especially in turnout, and something to keep an eye out tomorrow in the exit polls.
As we know, both in 2016 and 2020, Trump underperformed in the polls. So, what you're saying essentially, do you think there is a group of people that could potentially move the needle here in this election that are silent Trump voters?
Yes, I mean, it's often been pointed out that there is a shy Trump voter phenomenon. That phenomenon has been less evident in recent polls over the last year or 2 years than in previous years and in previous election cycles. But there might be two phenomena that are at play here. A shy female Trump voter, which is an evolution of what we've seen before, but focus more on women and dealing a lot more with women's reproductive rights and the abortion fight. The other phenomenon that we might be seeing is a non-response bias. Trump supporters not taking online polls or phone polls at the same incidence rate as Harris's supporters, or Republicans not taking polls at the same incidence rate as Democrats. If that's the case, and this is what the New York Times alluded to in their final poll release, where they said that they had a 14% non-response bias or a higher response bias amongst non-whites versus whites, then that can make the difference here, right? Especially because how close the election numbers are.